Hey everybody, so today we're going to look at another Udemy programming exercise. So today the programming exercise is called MegaBytes Converter. We're going to start off by just reading the question so we understand exactly what we need to do as a programmer and just kind of to simplify all the information they've given us. Write a method called print megabytes and kilobytes that is one parameter of type int with the name kilobytes. The method should return anything, which basically means the method should be void, and it needs to calculate the megabytes and the remaining kilobytes from the kilobytes parameter. Then it needs to print a message in the format xx kb equals yy mb and zz space kb. XX represents the original value kilobytes, YY represents the calculated megabytes, and ZZ represents the calculated remaining kilobytes. For example, when the parameter kilobytes is 2500, it needs to print 2500 kilobytes equals 2 megabytes and 452 kilobytes. If the parameter kilobytes is less than 0, then print the text invalid value. Here are some examples of outputs. We are going to test each one of these in a moment. And then the instructor also gives us a few tips here. Tip 1, be extremely careful about spaces in the printed message. Tip 2, use the remainder operator. Tip 3, 1 megabyte equals 1024 kilobytes. Note, do not set kilobytes parameter value inside of your method. Note, the solution will not be accepted if there are extra spaces. Note, the print megabytes and kilobytes method needs to be defined as a public static, like having been done so far in the course. And the last note, you do not need to add a main method to solve the code. This last line, we are going to have to create a main method. If you look over on the right side, you can see we have two different classes. We have the megabytes class where we're going to create the method that was just discussed here, and we have the main class that is going to set up and run all the test errors. So as you can see, I kind of already set up the main class here. It's giving us this error because we haven't created the print megabytes and kilobytes method in the megabytes class yet. So from reading the instructions, we do know that the main purpose of this method and the whole entire project obviously is to convert megabytes into kilobytes. And we know along with it having to print the message, we have to also calculate megabytes converted to kilobytes and a remainder. And also we have one more thing here, which we also have to determine if the value is invalid or not. So let's get started. Let's go back up to the top so we can do this in some kind of order. So we'll first start off with creating the main method. I'm sorry, not the main method, the method that we have to create, which is the print megabytes and kilobytes method, which takes in one parameter of int. The int is titled kilobytes in this situation. Again, if we're coding it on our own and not trying to use a tester here, we could name the variable anything. We are getting an error here because I didn't declare what kind of method this is, and as we can see from the instructions, it's a void method, void type method. So that got rid of the error. Just for organizational purposes, I'm going to put in a few comments here. We have to add in the invalid options, some calculations. We're just going to have it look like that. It wants to be special, it's going to be special. Calculations, output. Okay, so I like to tackle the hardest thing first, so let's start off with the calculations. Oh, we forgot one more thing. Variables. Okay, so first things first, let's do the variables. They're kind of easy. So we know we are going to need two different variables, one to hold in the megabytes and one to hold in the remainders of the kilobytes. I'm just gonna title it remainder for the remainder kilobytes. Remainder kilobytes. We all know spelling isn't our main thing with being programmers, you know. Even though it tells me how to spell remainder right on the other side. That's cool. Then this is going to hold the megabytes. It's going to store the megabytes. Store megabytes converted from kilobytes. And if you're wondering why we have to set them equal to 0, Java, they make you set your variables equal to the 0 so you can declare them, basically initializing them as a start-off number. And because we're up here, we can set up the invalid option. So if the parameter kilobytes is less than 0, then print the text invalid. We're just basically going to type that exactly, but in code. So if kilobytes is less than 0, print. So in order to print in Java, we use system out, and IntelliJ has shortcuts, sysout, print line. So we're just write invalid value. So we've taken care of the input, the invalid input, and the variable. So now we're going to deal with the calculations before we get to the output that they asked of us and the way it's supposed to look. So if we scroll down a little bit, we see that we are supposed to use the remainder operator, and we are supposed to convert from kilobytes to megabytes. So I'm just going to write the conversion here. 1 megabyte equals 124 kilobytes. So the first thing we should do is obviously the conversion, right? So we're going to store the results of the conversion into the variable megabytes that we declared on line 11. And in order to do this, we basically just divide, right? So you do kilobytes divided by 124. And then for the remainder, we're going to do the same thing but use the remainder operator. For those that don't know what the remainder operator is, it is a %. But the difference between the remainder operator is it's just going to give us the remainder. So obviously here with the divide symbol we get the quotient. And with the %, we just get the remainder. So it's only going to hold the remainder, which is still going to be in kilobytes. Okay, now we have the math taken care of, we have the variables, we have the invalid option. So let's do the print. Like I said, in Java, we do sysout, or systemout.println. There are two different forms. There is an ln. This ln right here, it just gives you, it's basically an enter. There's a space in between each one, compared to if the ln was not there, you would have all of your stuff basically condensed on one line. If you guys want me to show you an example of the difference between ln, print ln, and print, I can show you that. Just let me know in the comments below. So now we're going to set up the layout for the output. And because of Udemy's tester, we do have to have this dang near exact. So first things first is it's going to take in the variable that we declared, that we take in from the parameters, space kb equals space So hopefully we can get it on the first try with all these spaces. Spaces make it kind of hard because they're going to give us an error just purely based on spaces. Space, megabytes, and space. Then the remainder plus KB. We're going to space. Okay. So, is that right? It's going to do kilobytes equals megabytes and the remainder. Looks like everything's here. We're going to run it in IntelliJ first, see if it works correctly with their outputs. Okay, so we'll have it here to see if it matches up. Let's run it. Run it! Okay, I do get this error a lot, so I guess it's good that I got it here to show you guys. If you guys look at the second example, it's a negative 1024, and if you see here, we were just supposed to get an invalid, not have it print out also the print line. The reason why it printed out the print line is because we didn't tell the program after it prints invalid, it's supposed to return nothing. So if we just add that right here on line 8, it is not going to print out the output anymore because once it sees the kilobytes is less than 0, it's going to return the invalid value print line, and then it's just going to return and the program is going to finish executing. So let's run it again, see if that's fixed. And it is fixed there, so now it's the moment of truth. Let's try it inside of Udemy's tester. You guys, if we get it on the first try, I think everyone should live alike. Let's hope for the best. The spaces are gonna screw us. Oh shit, we got it. Woohoo! Yeah! So that's it. If you guys are having any other problems with converting, I also did another video on the speed converter between kilometers to miles. I'm going to leave it at the end card, so just stay until the end of the video for that. So if you guys learned something new, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I would love to hear it. If I helped you guys with anything, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And just remember that coding is not a joke, but it is all worth it in the end. So, talk to you guys next time. Have a great day!